An update tonight on a high-profile sex trafficking investigation. It appears to have come to an end.
Prosecutors have now dropped charges against most of the men charged in connection to the company Cape Fear Escorts. WECT's Delaney Tarpley following up on this for us tonight. Delaney, Cape Fear Escorts claim to provide dancers and escorts, but investigators have said for years that it served as a front for prostitution and human trafficking.
Yeah, that's right, Fran. And in 2023, authorities charged 7 people in connection to that. One of them is currently in prison serving a 27-year sentence, but the others waited for their trials until yesterday, when all of the charges suddenly went away.
A sex trafficking investigation that WECT News has reported on for well over a decade appears to be over. Prosecutors on Tuesday dismissed all charges against these people: Christopher Arrowwood, Chandler Anderson, Dustin Anderson, Michael Snow, Jesse Bright, and Jennifer Jones. Investigators charged them in 2023 with promotion of prostitution and connection to the company Cape Fear Escorts. The DA's office now says the charges are dropped due to, quote, insufficient evidence. I spoke to District Attorney Jason Smith 1 year ago about the difficulty in prosecuting these cases.
Once a survivor of human trafficking or prostitution comes forward, it's usually a he said, she said type of game. The complexities start with how do you prove, how do you corroborate what this young woman or woman is saying. A lot of that takes investigation into digital forensics, talking about social media, phones, hotel records, social media ads. It's complex.
We asked Smith for another interview today after news came out about his office dropping those charges. The office told us he's not available, but he did find time to send this statement saying, quote, "It is always the ethical duty of a prosecutor to do justice, and in some instances that requires dismissing cases when our office cannot meet its burden of proving a case beyond a reasonable doubt. After consultation with the victims and law enforcement partners working on these cases, we came to the conclusion that we would not be successful at meeting that burden at trial." One man charged in the initial investigation, Christopher Todd Evans, pleaded guilty last year in federal court. He's serving a sentence of 27 years in federal prison.
All in total, investigators filed more than 300 charges associated with this case, and authorities believe there are up to as many as 150 victims. We asked District Attorney Jason Smith if he would be available for an interview later this week, and we're still waiting to hear his response. Fran.
Delaney, the lead prosecutor in the Cape Fear Escorts case changed fairly recently, right?
Yeah, that is right. Fran, former ADA Connie Jordan, who handled this case for a very long time, retired late last year. I reached out to Jordan to see if she had any comment on the charges being dropped after she left the case. She told me she didn't think it was appropriate for her to comment.
All right, Delaney, thanks so much.